Hello and welcome to episode 21 of In Pursuit of Clarity, entitled The Cultivation of a Hate Mob. I'm working hard to complete the next video in the Subverted History series, but there's too much going on at the moment, and this pivot point we're currently witnessing is simply too important to not discuss. I now strongly believe that we're at an all-important point in history. After two back-to-back, apparently mass shootings, one carried out by a far-left individual who seemed to have Satanist and anti-fascist tendencies, another supposedly by an individual with anti-immigrant beliefs, the two events have somehow been lumped together under the rubric of white supremacist terrorism. As I'm sure most of you know, much about these events is deeply suspect, including their coverage. Yet, even attempting to discuss these matters could cause me to lose my voice across all major platforms. Predicting such an atmosphere as of 10 to 15 years ago would have produced scoffs and accusations of positing a ridiculous conspiracy theory, but this is now officially the point we've reached as a society. One can't have a truthful discussion of newsworthy happenings anymore. So, I'm not here to attempt this at the moment. I can only urge you strongly to look into these incidents yourself, soberly and objectively. But I am here to discuss related topics. There's a serious hate movement growing across the Western world. By any objective standard, it's the largest and most powerful in modern history. What makes this particular hate movement so uniquely dangerous is its nearly unlimited financial backing. In fact, one might say money itself is the epicenter, as the foremost tool being used to both fuel and organize the movement, and engage in the boosting of its brand image. Its members have infiltrated the most influential positions in traditional news media and social media platforms, in Hollywood and television. In short, there's hardly a single major organ of influence that isn't practically monopolized and leveraged towards their ends. Bots and fake accounts across places like Twitter and Facebook are used in the thousands to assist in pushing their narratives and ideology. And this, coupled with the mass banning and censorship and algorithmic trickery, causes a significant percentage of Twitter's trending topics and YouTube's trending videos, for example, to be products of their handiwork. And because of this masterfully efficient indoctrination and propaganda campaign, some of the parties that now toe the line for these globalist profiteers are decent individuals with positive intent, with their altruism and nobler instincts having been hijacked and derailed. The puppeteer behind the scenes merely needs to set this stage with carefully chosen props and furniture, and the actors and actresses, even if they engage in unscripted improv, are still guided in the proper direction. I've long felt that the most proficient magician is he who is capable of manipulating and building the architecture in the human mind, and most notably without leaving any obvious traces behind while so doing. And the narrative being pushed, the seed growth of the deconstructionist movement, and let's be honest, deconstruction here is simply a euphemism for destroying, is one of overt hostility towards the bedrock principles of the Western world. And not just these principles, but increasingly often for the individuals who represent or champion them. At no point in this technological age has hatred been more freely voiced without any fear of repercussion. And the reason is simple. The financial powers are backing this movement, marching in lockstep with and providing the incentive structures for those willing to play the game. Those who have the most to gain from globalism, from open borders and cheap labor, from the domestication and atomization of humanity. The Western ethos of independence, of personal responsibility, of sovereignty and fair play is the greatest threat to their ideology, and thus, inevitably, so is Western man himself. And so, a stage has been set accordingly. For the past several years, it's been an unspoken rule that if you're willing to be openly and aggressively anti-white or anti-male, or speak out strongly against Western traditions and culture, you're essentially whitelisted and guaranteed a seat at this table. Recently, however, this has escalated to new heights. The tens of thousands of messages on platforms like Twitter aren't just subtle jabs, but often open incitement and encouragement. A collective venting of race-based rage. Tens of thousands of individuals who, in healthier eras, would have been receiving help and support for genuinely horrible happenings in their formative years, whether it be abuse or neglect or anything similar, have now been provided with a ready-made scapegoat as a target for this rage built up and suppressed through the years. Don't bother looking inward, says the invisible voice with its guiding hand. The cause of all your problems is clear. The cruel and unjust white male is the reason our world is on the brink of disaster. If only this problem would be solved, what a utopia we might usher in. News anchors and late-night hosts, all paid handsome sums to read scripts written by an increasingly small circle of writers, very much belonging to this same hateful element, stoke the rage still further each evening, using the formality and professional appearance of mainstream news and the humor of talk show hosts, or the attempted humor, to further disarm and more deeply and effectively manipulate. Systematic and efficient programming techniques are being used to brainwash and indoctrinate, techniques formulated by institutions officially and provably tasked with the understanding of the machinations of the human mind, for the unspoken purpose of more effectively controlling it. A slight twist of the truth here, and a mischaracterization there, until their chosen storyline or narrative is just tolerable enough to pass muster. It's then sold to the public via news panels and roundtables, with back and forth chatter supposedly containing individuals from both sides of the ideological fence, an informal discussion which then seamlessly creates the public's norms of discussion and debate. And on the topic of norms, another brilliant tactic is to use this monopolization of influence to paint moderates, like Tim Pool, for example, as far right, which has the invisible effect of pushing the Overton window to the left, causing the watching public to slowly but surely drift further leftward, seeking the safety of that center point in our all-too-human herd-like manner. Although courage and bravery aren't exactly hallmark traits of this element of the population, there is strength and comfort in the herd. So as an entire subset of humanity is guided down this primrose path, and as the flames are stoked more and more aggressively, as a unit, they're becoming capable of almost anything. What's being created here is, by any objective definition, an angry mob. One might even add unruly and unhinged, and now actively looking for targets. Just imagine how supportive much of this mob would be of any action, no matter how extreme, taken against the president, or anyone else the media has deeply vilified. And again, what makes this so dangerous is the backing of the media and corporate mainstream. Any institution that can be slowly bought out and controlled by the almighty dollar has or will fall into the clutches of this element, seeking to entirely reshape our reality into one that best suits their aims. And they now have an army across the Western world to aid in this transition. Not just Soros's kids and the officially paid thugs, but a far larger group that might best be called useful idiots to help them carry out their aims. And democracy be damned, the will of the people be damned. The eternal delay of Brexit is proof of this. The attempted coup against Trump is proof of this. The collaboration of the Five Eyes nations to spy on foes around the world is proof of this. Puppets like Macron are living, breathing proof of this. And of course, these proofs are merely the tip of an iceberg. This is serious, and the best example of true national security threats. These individuals don't care whether the public wants the changes they've been tasked by their handlers to implement. They intend to make their desired changes regardless. And I truly believe they're not above instigating mass violence or civil war to bring their one-world shopping mall with a merchant-class elite at the helm into being. And this was the hidden danger of the type of capitalism we allow to develop, as hard as our ancestors worked to keep us vigilant against such happenings. Namely, we live in an age in which it's no longer the best and brightest that rise through the ranks, or the most capable, or courageous, or intelligent, or otherwise meritorious, but rather the merely shrewd or clever. After all, what does our current economic system reward, broadly speaking? Our ability and willingness to get an edge over our fellow man by any means. What happens when men like this occupy positions of immense power and influence? Do they fight for the best interests of their nation and its citizens, or their own? Do nations thrive and become healthier and happier, or turn into hubs of indentured servitude in service to the dollar? There's never been a more dangerous time with regard to the general feeling in the air, certainly not within my lifetime. The army of individuals under the control of these corrupt powers are truly programmed to their core in many instances, and there's no better word for it. When their every last information source regarding politics or culture or any related issues comes from the same place and sings the same tune, it's impossible for those who still treat these as trustworthy information sources to become anything but wholly indoctrinated entities, not only capable of expressions of hatred or violence, but provided with the justification, programmed to feel as if such expressions or the support of them might be moral or virtuous. Keep in mind the gunman who attacked the ICE facility was openly praised across all social media platforms, and the media dutifully played its part by burying the story or not covering it at all. As bad as it is, that virulent hate you see now, if given 5 to 10 years to continue to grow at its present pace, could evolve into something truly monstrous, if history is any guide. And this is why we fight, why we simply have to fight, and do all we can to penetrate the fog and illusions churned out by this machine, and reach those who still have ears to hear. They won't stop pushing, and as we speak, the pace and type of aggressive pushing looks very much like desperation. And for posterity's sake, and for the record, to those bankrolling and so aggressively pushing this raging culture war, it was you that stepped on the gas. It was you attempting to change healthy and happy nations into something the vast majority of the populations didn't want to be. Forcing us to endure the madness is one thing. Forcing our children and all future generations to suffer its effects is a bridge too far for many. Saul Alinsky and the lead developers of the philosophy fueling the madness managed to turn the concept of protest from a tactic used in extreme cases into a core tenet of an ideology, which means that even when aims are attained, the protest never stops. There are no brakes on this train, and in fact it was designed that way. So it's not a clearly defined goal or set of goals being sought, but rather a constant and never-ending push, in a generic way against whiteness, against maleness, and against the best principles of the Western world. These were grasping, ambitious, greedy, and malevolent men who essentially designed a time bomb for the Western world and knew precisely what they were doing as they did so. So, no matter what happens in the near future, I do believe that we can say we tried, and that we were patient, we endured, we tried our best to be understanding, objective, and fair-minded. I still hold out some hope that this bomb might be diffused, but that hope is quickly fading. Having said that, I'd like to end with this. Broadly speaking, regardless of whether that bomb is safely diffused, I am very hopeful and optimistic. History moves in cycles, and their 15 minutes are just about up. Thanks for listening.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my